Bangkok, Thailand. The summer air felt heavy enough to steal every breath. Even after sunset, the streets surrounding the arena refused to cool down. Vendors shouted over each other. Charcoal smoke drifted through the narrow alleys. The smell of grilled meat, fresh herbs, sweat, and tiger balm mixed into a scent every fighter in Thailand knew by heart. Tonight wasn't just another fight night. It was history waiting to happen. Thousands of people poured through the gates hours before the opening bell. Families, soldiers, foreign tourists, wealthy businessmen, young fighters carrying notebooks, hoping to learn something from the greatest champion they had ever seen. By the time the lights illuminated the ring, not a single empty seat remained. More than 3,000 spectators filled the wooden grandstands. The noise rolled across the arena like thunder. Every conversation centered around one man, the undefeated Muay Thai champion. Some believed he was the greatest striker Thailand had ever produced. Others believed he had already surpassed every legend before him. Many simply called him the Iron Tiger. For 8 years, nobody had found an answer. Not one. Not local champions. Not visiting kickboxers. Not karate masters from Japan. Not Western boxers chasing prize money. Everyone had entered the ring believing they had discovered his weakness. Everyone had walked away disappointed. Or carried away. His record wasn't just impressive, it was terrifying. Dozens upon dozens of victories. Not a single defeat. Most opponents never survived beyond the second round. Several never fought professionally again. His knees shattered confidence. His elbows opened faces. His kicks echoed through arenas long after the fight ended. Every victory added another layer to a reputation that had become almost mythical. Children copied his stance. Gyms hung his photographs on their walls. Young fighters whispered his name before training, hoping some of his strength would become theirs. To many people in Thailand, he was no longer just a champion. He had become proof that Muay Thai stood above every other fighting style. Tonight was supposed to celebrate that belief. Golden banners hung from every corner of the stadium. Traditional musicians sat near the entrance, playing slow ceremonial rhythms while officials welcomed important guests. Even members of Thailand's sporting council occupied the front rows. International reporters adjusted their cameras. Several magazine writers had traveled from Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, and the United States. Tomorrow's headlines already seemed written. The unbeaten champion extends his legacy. Nobody expected anything else. Inside the locker room beneath the arena. Silence. The champion sat alone. His hands rested on his knees. His breathing remained slow and steady. Years of combat had taught him one lesson. Emotion wasted energy. Calm created victory. A trainer wrapped fresh hand bandages around his fists. Another massaged herbal oil into his shoulders. Neither man spoke. They had performed this same ritual before every fight for nearly a decade. Outside, the announcer's voice echoed through the building. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you will witness something never attempted before. The crowd immediately quieted. Curiosity spread from one section of the arena to another. Even the champion slowly opened his eyes. The announcer continued, Our undefeated champion has made a special request. A wave of whispers swept through the audience. Special request? Champions didn't make requests. Promoters made requests. Champions simply fought. The announcer smiled. Tonight, there will be no scheduled challenger. The arena exploded with confusion. No opponent? People looked at each other. Journalists lowered their cameras. Gamblers argued loudly. The announcer raised one hand. Instead, our champion will personally choose his opponent. Silence. Complete silence. Nobody understood. Then came the explanation. One volunteer. One fighter. One chance. He will choose anyone inside this arena. Some people laughed. Others thought it was a joke. A few immediately avoided eye contact with the ring. The announcer wasn't joking. This is not an exhibition. This is not entertainment. This is a demonstration of confidence. Our champion believes true mastery fears no challenge. The word spread through the stadium like wildfire. Thousands of eyes turned toward each other. Who would be chosen? A tourist, a boxer, a soldier, another martial artist? Nobody knew. Back inside the locker room, the champion stood. His trainers finished tying the sacred monkon around his head. He looked into the mirror. No smile, no excitement. Only certainty. 8 years. Countless victories. Tonight would simply become another chapter, or so he believed. High above the arena, near the back rows, far away from the flashing cameras, a quiet man sat alone, simple dark trousers, dark long-sleeved shirt, no expensive watch, no bodyguards, no sign that he belonged among famous fighters. He wasn't cheering, he wasn't drinking, he wasn't talking. He simply watched the ring with calm, observant eyes. Every movement, every announcement, every reaction. As though he wasn't watching a fight, as though he was studying something far more important. No one around him paid much attention. To everyone else, he looked like just another visitor who had wandered into Bangkok's biggest fight night. No one could have imagined. Before the night was over, every person inside this arena would remember exactly where that quiet stranger had been sitting. The arena lights dimmed for a moment. Then a single spotlight swept across the ring. The crowd immediately rose to its feet. A deep drum echoed through the stadium. One beat, then another, then another. Every fighter in the building recognized the rhythm. It was reserved for only one man, the champion. The announcer's voice thundered across the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated Muay Thai champion of Thailand, the Iron Tiger. The arena erupted. Thousands of voices merged into one deafening roar. Some fans waved Thai flags, others shouted his nickname again and again. Children climbed onto their father's shoulders just to catch a glimpse of the man they had grown up idolizing. Then, he appeared, barefoot, wrapped in a traditional monkon blessed by monks. Red Muay Thai shorts trimmed with gold reflected the bright arena lights. His movements were calm, measured. Every step carried the confidence of a man who had never known defeat. He didn't wave to the crowd. He didn't smile. He simply walked toward the ring like a king returning to his throne. The cheers only grew louder, because everyone already knew his story. He hadn't been born into greatness. He had earned every ounce of it. Years earlier, he was nothing more than the youngest son of a poor farming family outside Chiang Mai. His father harvested rice. His mother sold fruit at a roadside market. Some days, the family barely had enough money for dinner. At 12 years old, he entered a local Muay Thai gym, not to become famous, not to become a champion, but to help his parents survive. Every fight meant prize money. Every victory meant food on the table. Every bruise carried a purpose. While other children played in the streets, he trained. Before sunrise, he ran for miles through dusty village roads. He kicked heavy banana trees until his shins bled. He smashed elbows into old tires hanging from wooden beams. He repeated the same combinations thousands of times until they became instinct. His trainers never praised him. If he landed 100 perfect kicks, they demanded 100 more. If he complained, training doubled. If he lost focus, he started over. The gym believed one simple truth: talent wins matches. Discipline creates legends. By 16, he had already defeated grown men. By 19, regional champions refused to face him. By 23, he held the national title. And after that, the victories became impossible to count without reading official records. Every challenger arrived with confidence. Every challenger left with excuses. Some blamed his speed, others blamed his timing. Many blamed simple bad luck. But inside the Muay Thai community, everyone knew the truth. The Iron Tiger had no weakness. His kicks cracked against heavy bags like baseball bats hitting solid wood. His knees arrived without warning. His elbows appeared from impossible angles. And perhaps most dangerous of all, he never became emotional. No matter how hard someone hit him, his expression never changed. No anger, no panic, no hesitation, just complete control. That calmness frightened opponents more than any strike ever could. Several foreign champions had traveled to Thailand hoping to become the first man to defeat him. A karate champion from Okinawa, a famous kickboxer from Europe, even a heavyweight boxer from Australia. Each believed their style held the answer. Each left the country defeated. Some respectfully admitted he was better. Others quietly disappeared from professional competition forever. The newspapers loved comparing him to a tiger. Silent, patient, deadly. But inside his own gym, His coaches called him something else. The Wall. Because once the fight started, everything stopped in front of him. Dreams, confidence, careers, one by one. Until nothing remained except another victory. That reputation changed him. People stopped treating him like a normal fighter. Young athletes asked for autographs before tournaments. Restaurant owners refused to let him pay. Government officials invited him to ceremonies. Even famous actors requested photographs with him. Respect slowly became admiration. Admiration slowly became worship. And worship, quietly, became pride. Not loud pride, not arrogant words. Something more dangerous. The belief that no opponent truly existed anymore. His trainers noticed it first. He no longer watched recordings of opponents. He rarely asked questions during strategy meetings. Sometimes he ended training early, not because he was lazy, because he genuinely believed nobody could push him anymore. One evening, after another successful title defense, his oldest coach sat beside him inside the empty gym. The old man looked at the rows of championship trophies lining the walls. Then he spoke quietly. "Do you know the greatest danger for an undefeated fighter?" The champion answered without looking up. "Getting knocked out." The coach slowly shook his head. "No. The greatest danger is believing you already know everything." The champion smiled politely, but inside, he didn't agree. 8 years, no defeats, no draws, no close calls. If experience taught anything, it was that confidence was earned. The old coach stood and walked toward the exit. Before leaving, he stopped at the doorway. There is always someone stronger. There is always someone faster. And sometimes, the most dangerous fighter doesn't look dangerous at all. The champion watched him leave, then quietly wrapped another layer of tape around his fists. He respected his teacher. But he no longer believed those words. Tomorrow belonged to ordinary fighters. Tonight belonged to him. Outside the locker room, the crowd continued chanting his nickname. The arena shook beneath thousands of stomping feet. The announcer stepped back into the center of the ring. "Ladies and gentlemen, our undefeated champion has made his decision. He will now enter the audience and personally choose the man who will face him tonight." A wave of nervous laughter spread through the stadium. Nobody realized history had already taken its first step, and somewhere near the highest row, a quiet stranger remained seated, watching everything, waiting for nothing, completely unaware that, in only a few minutes, every eye inside the arena would be looking directly at him. The arena fell into an uneasy silence. More than 3,000 people watched as the undefeated champion stepped through the ropes and onto the arena floor. This wasn't normal. Champions defended titles. They didn't search for opponents. But tonight was different. Tonight, the Iron Tiger would choose his own challenger. The announcer raised his voice. There are no hidden fighters. No professional challengers. No rehearsals. One man, chosen completely at random. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Some spectators laughed nervously. Others leaned back in their seats, hoping the champion wouldn't even look in their direction. A few young martial artists secretly hoped they would be chosen. It would be the opportunity of a lifetime, even if it lasted only a few seconds. The champion began walking, slowly, calmly. His eyes moved from face to face, not searching for the biggest man, not searching for the strongest, simply observing. The first section was filled with tourists. Most looked away the moment he approached. Some pretended to adjust their cameras. Others suddenly became fascinated by the ceiling. The champion kept walking. The second section held businessmen and government officials. None of them were here to fight. He moved on. The third section contained soldiers, strong men, confident men. Yet even they avoided his eyes. Nobody volunteered. Nobody smiled. Nobody wanted to become another name on the champion's perfect record. The arena grew quieter with every step. Only the sound of his bare feet echoed across the concrete floor. Step, step, step. Then he stopped. Not near the front. Not beside the VIP seats, near the highest rows, far from the cameras. His eyes rested on a single man. The stranger sat alone. Simple black trousers, a dark button-up shirt, no jewelry, No expensive clothing, no sign that he belonged to any famous gym. He wasn't drinking, he wasn't cheering. He wasn't even reacting to the noise around him. He simply watched the ring with complete attention, almost peacefully. The champion studied him for several seconds. Something felt different. He couldn't explain it. The stranger looked ordinary, yet somehow, he seemed completely comfortable surrounded by thousands of screaming people. No excitement, no nervousness, just quiet observation. The champion raised one finger. You. The entire crowd turned at once, heads twisted toward the back rows. People searched until they finally realized who'd been chosen. The quiet stranger. For a moment, he didn't move. A man sitting beside him tapped his shoulder. I think he's talking to you. The stranger looked toward the arena. Their eyes met. The champion pointed again. Yes. You. Several spectators immediately began whispering. Poor guy. He's finished. He doesn't even look like a fighter. The stranger slowly stood. He wasn't tall, around 5'7", lean, athletic. But nothing about him looked intimidating. No massive shoulders, no thick neck, no swollen fighter's ears. Nothing. Just an ordinary-looking Chinese man in everyday clothes. The laughter began almost instantly. Some people smiled, others openly laughed. Even a few journalists chuckled while adjusting their cameras. This was going to be easy. The undefeated Muay Thai champion against a quiet tourist. Perfect entertainment. The announcer forced a polite smile. Sir, please come down to the ring. The stranger nodded once, without saying a word. He began walking down the long staircase. His pace never changed. No rushing, no hesitation. Every step looked relaxed, balanced, as if he had all the time in the world. The closer he came, the louder the whispers became. Does he even know Muay Thai? He'll be unconscious in 30 seconds. This won't last. Near the bottom of the stairs, an elderly man grabbed the stranger's arm. In broken English, he whispered, You don't have to do this. The champion is dangerous. The stranger smiled politely. His voice remained calm. I understand. Thank you. Then he continued walking. The champion watched carefully. Still no fear. Still no panic. Most challengers showed nervousness before entering the ring. This man showed nothing. That bothered him. The stranger climbed the ring steps, removed his shoes. Ducking beneath the ropes with effortless balance, he entered the ring. For the first time, the two men stood face to face. The difference looked enormous. The Iron Tiger appeared thicker, more muscular. His body carried years of brutal Muay Thai conditioning. The stranger looked almost ordinary. The crowd couldn't stop laughing. The announcer stepped forward holding a microphone. Sir, before we begin, what is your name? The stranger accepted the microphone. His voice wasn't loud, but somehow, the entire arena became silent enough to hear every word. My name is Bruce Lee. Silence, no cheers, no reaction. Most of the Thai audience had never heard the name. To them, he was simply another visitor from Hong Kong. The announcer continued, Mr. Lee, have you ever fought professionally? Bruce answered honestly. I've spent my life studying martial arts. What style? Bruce paused for a moment, then smiled. I don't believe in limiting myself to one style. A few people frowned. The answer sounded strange. The announcer looked confused. So, karate? Bruce gently shook his head. No. Kung Fu? Bruce smiled again. Not exactly. The audience laughed. Some believed he was joking. Others assumed he didn't know how to answer. The champion folded his arms. For the first time all evening, he allowed himself a small smile. This wasn't a challenge. This was simply another demonstration. Another easy victory. Another lesson for the audience. Across the ring, Bruce quietly looked around the arena. Thousands of faces. Thousands of expectations. Thousands of people waiting to see someone lose. His expression never changed. He simply took one slow breath and waited for the bell. The referee stepped between the two men. He looked first at the undefeated champion, then at Bruce Lee. For a brief moment, even he questioned whether this was a good idea. One man had spent nearly a decade dominating Thailand's toughest fighters. The other had walked into the ring wearing street clothes. The difference seemed almost unfair. The referee cleared his throat. This is a demonstration. No unnecessary violence. Protect yourselves at all times. Both men nodded. The champion raised his gloves. Bruce simply lifted his hands. No traditional Muay Thai guard. No boxing stance. No karate pose. His posture looked relaxed, almost casual. The champion frowned. What kind of stance is that? The bell rang. A sharp metallic sound echoed through the arena. The fight had begun. For the first few seconds, neither man moved. The crowd leaned forward. Even the reporter stopped writing. The champion slowly circled to his left. Bruce mirrored him without appearing to think. Every step was smooth, balanced, natural, almost like flowing water. The champion decided to test him. A quick left jab, fast enough to surprise most opponents. Bruce tilted his head barely 2 inches. The punch sliced through empty air. A murmur spread across the audience. Lucky. The champion thought the same thing. He fired another jab, then a cross. Bruce's feet shifted effortlessly. Again. Nothing landed, not because he was running, not because he was retreating. He simply wasn't where the punches arrived. The champion narrowed his eyes. Interesting. He increased the pace. A low kick exploded toward Bruce's lead leg. The sound alone made several spectators flinch. Bruce lifted his leg at exactly the right moment. The kick glanced away harmlessly. The audience applauded. Finally, a proper exchange. The champion smiled. Now he was warming up. He stepped forward with a classic Muay Thai combination. Jab, cross, body kick. Bruce slipped the jab, turned away from the cross, stepped inside the kick before it fully developed. Not a single strike connected. The movement happened so quickly that many people missed it. The champion stopped. He looked at Bruce for the first time with genuine curiosity. Most opponents defended. Bruce wasn't defending. He was disappearing. Minimal movement. No wasted energy. Every inch served a purpose. The old trainer, watching from ringside, slowly leaned forward. His eyes widened. He whispered to himself, "He's reading him." Back inside the ring, the champion refused to slow down. He attacked again, this time with greater speed. An elbow flashed toward Bruce's temple. Bruce rotated his shoulders just enough for the elbow to pass. At the same moment, his fingertips lightly touched the champion's forearm. Not a strike, just a touch. Yet somehow, the elbow completely lost its balance. The champion stumbled half a step. He immediately recovered. But he had felt it. That touch. It wasn't strength. It wasn't force. It was timing. Perfect timing. The laughter inside the arena disappeared. Nobody laughed anymore. Something strange was happening. The tourist wasn't surviving by accident. He was making one of Thailand's greatest champions miss. Again. And again. And again. The champion took a deep breath. His confidence remained. But something inside him had changed. He was no longer trying to entertain the crowd. Now, he wanted answers. He launched one of his signature techniques, a lightning-fast roundhouse kick aimed at Bruce's ribs. The strike had finished countless fights. Bruce watched it come. He didn't panic. He stepped slightly off the center line. His left hand gently guided the shin past his body. His right foot pivoted. The kick missed by less than an inch. The entire movement looked effortless. The champion landed safely. But when he turned around, Bruce was already standing directly in front of him, close enough to strike, close enough to finish. Instead, Bruce smiled politely, then stepped back. He had chosen not to attack. The champion felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Confusion. Why didn't he hit me? The crowd erupted into whispers. Did you see that? He could have punched him. Why didn't he? Even the commentators exchanged nervous glances. This was no longer the one-sided demonstration everyone expected. This was becoming something else. Something nobody had prepared for. The champion slowly reset his stance. For the first time in 8 undefeated years, he wasn't thinking about how to win. He was thinking about how to touch his opponent. Across the ring, Bruce remained calm. His breathing hadn't changed. His heartbeat seemed untouched. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. He was simply observing, waiting, learning. The champion clenched his fists. Enough. No more testing. No more patience. If this quiet stranger wanted a real fight, he was about to get one. And somewhere beyond the bright arena lights, an old trainer quietly whispered words he hadn't spoken in years. Now, we're about to discover who that man really is. The champion finally understood. The arena had become unnaturally quiet. 3,000 people. Yet not a single voice could be heard. Even the gamblers who had shouted all night stood frozen, their betting slips hanging loosely from their hands. No one had expected this. The undefeated Muay Thai champion had thrown everything he normally used to break opponents. And not one clean strike had landed. Across the ring, Bruce Lee stood exactly where he had been moments before. Relaxed, balanced, breathing through his nose. As calm as a man taking an evening walk. The champion stared at him. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking at an opponent. He was looking at a mystery. The referee glanced between them. Neither man looked tired, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The crowd no longer wanted entertainment. They wanted answers. The champion slowly rolled his shoulders. His pride refused to let him stop. He had defended this title for years. He had carried the honor of Muay Thai across countless arenas. He couldn't allow one quiet stranger to make him question everything he believed. He tightened his gloves. "No more games," he whispered to himself. Bruce heard the words. He nodded politely, almost as if he understood. The champion exploded forward. His feet slammed against the canvas. A crushing low kick. Bruce stepped away. A right elbow. Bruce leaned just outside its path. A left knee. Bruce rotated around it. Every attack missed by the smallest possible distance. It was almost impossible to understand. Bruce wasn't faster by much. He was simply already there, already moving before the attack had fully begun. The old trainer at ringside slowly stood up. His eyes never left Bruce. "He's not reacting," the trainer whispered. "He's reading intention." The champion launched another combination. Punch, kick, elbow, knee. Each technique flowed into the next with years of championship precision. Bruce flowed with them, not against them, around them. Like water moving around stone. There was no panic, no urgency, no wasted movement. Just timing. Perfect timing. The audience watched in complete disbelief. Some reporters had stopped taking photographs. They simply stared, trying to understand what they were seeing. The champion suddenly realized something. He had been fighting for nearly 2 minutes. His breathing had become heavier. Bruce's breathing hadn't changed at all. That realization struck harder than any punch. Frustration crept into his mind. He had never experienced this before. Every opponent eventually made mistakes. Every opponent eventually slowed down. This man did neither. The champion took one deep breath, then made a decision. If skill wasn't enough, he would trust instinct. He charged with everything he had. A powerful feint. Bruce didn't bite. Instantly, the champion spun into his most devastating technique, a full-power spinning elbow, the strike that had ended championship fights. The crowd gasped. Bruce didn't move backward. He moved forward. One small step, inside the attack. His left hand lightly caught the champion's wrist. His right palm rested gently against the champion's chest. There was no strike, no explosion, just a touch. Yet the champion completely lost his balance. His own momentum carried him past Bruce. He stumbled 2 steps before regaining control. When he turned around, Bruce was already standing behind him, perfectly balanced. The arena fell silent. Absolute silence. Everyone understood what had just happened. Bruce could have attacked. He could have ended the fight right there. Instead, he had done nothing. The champion looked into Bruce's eyes. There was no arrogance, no mockery, no celebration. only respect. Bruce spoke quietly, just loud enough for the champion to hear. You are strong, but strength is only one answer. The champion said nothing. His pride battled against the truth unfolding before him. The referee looked uncertain. Should he stop the demonstration? Should he let it continue? Before he could decide, the champion raised one glove. He wasn't surrendering. He was asking for one final exchange. Bruce nodded. The crowd held its breath. One last chance, one last attack, one last opportunity for the undefeated champion to prove why he ruled Thailand. Or one final lesson that no one inside the arena would ever forget. The entire arena stood in silence. No chanting, no applause, no laughter. Only the faint hum of the overhead lights and the slow breathing of two men standing in the center of the ring. The champion lifted his gloves one final time. His chest rose and fell heavily. Sweat rolled from his forehead onto the canvas. For the first time in nearly a decade, he looked tired. Across from him, Bruce Lee looked exactly the same as he had when the bell rang. Calm, relaxed, untouched. The referee glanced at both fighters. He sensed that whatever happened next would decide everything. The champion slowly bowed his head, not in surrender, in respect. Then he whispered to himself, one last time. Without warning, he exploded forward, his fastest attack of the night, a jab to blind, a cross to force a reaction, a crushing low kick. Then, his signature flying knee, the technique that had earned him championship after championship. The entire arena gasped. The distance disappeared in an instant. Bruce didn't step back. He stepped in. Everything happened too quickly for most people to understand. Bruce's left hand gently guided the champion's knee away from his center line. His right foot slid outside the attack. His hips rotated. In one smooth motion, he was standing beside the champion instead of in front of him. The flying knee missed completely. Before the champion could recover, Bruce moved, not with violence, with precision. His right fist shot forward, then stopped, exactly 1 inch from the champion's chin. The famous 1-inch punch. It never landed. It didn't have to. The champion froze. His eyes focused on Bruce's fist hanging motionless in front of his face. 1 inch. That was all. 1 inch separated victory from defeat. The referee saw it immediately. So, stop. He stepped between them and waved both men apart. The demonstration was over. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Then the champion slowly lowered his gloves. He understood. Every person inside the arena understood. Bruce hadn't won by knocking him unconscious. He had won by proving that he could have. There was nothing left to prove. The champion took one deep breath, then another. He looked directly into Bruce's eyes. I've fought champions from many countries. His voice was steady. I've never felt anything like that. Bruce smiled gently. There is always something new to learn. The champion nodded. And today, I was the student. Those words echoed through the silent arena. Many spectators felt chills. No one had ever heard the Iron Tiger speak like that. Not after a fight. Not after a victory. Not ever. The announcer stood frozen with the microphone in his hand. This wasn't the ending he had prepared. The newspapers had expected another dominant performance. Instead, they had witnessed a lesson. After a long pause, the announcer finally spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have witnessed tonight is not defeat. It is the highest form of martial arts. The crowd remained quiet for another moment. Then, somewhere near the back rows, one person began clapping, another joined, then another. Within seconds, the entire arena erupted into applause, not for a knockout, not for a champion, but for two martial artists who had shown that true mastery required more than power. The champion stepped forward. He removed one glove, then extended his hand. Bruce looked at it for a moment, then accepted it. The handshake lasted only a few seconds, but the respect behind it would be remembered far longer than any championship belt. As Bruce turned toward the ropes, preparing to leave the ring, the champion called after him. Wait. Bruce stopped. The champion smiled for the first time that night. You never told me. Who taught you to move like water? Bruce looked back with the same calm expression, then quietly replied, Life. Without another word, he stepped through the ropes and walked toward the exit. The crowd instinctively moved aside, creating a path for the quiet stranger who had entered the arena as an unknown visitor and was now leaving as the man every fighter would remember. For several moments after Bruce Lee stepped out of the ring, no one moved. It was as if the entire arena had forgotten how to react. The gamblers who had shouted all evening stood silently, their betting slips still in their hands. The reporters looked down at their notebooks. Most of what they had written no longer made sense. They had arrived expecting another dominant victory by Thailand's undefeated champion. Instead, they had witnessed something far more unforgettable. Not a knockout, not a humiliation, a lesson. Bruce walked calmly toward the exit, slipping his shoes back on without the slightest sign of excitement. To him, the demonstration was over. Nothing more, nothing less. But behind him, the whispers had already begun. Who is he? Did you hear his name? Bruce Lee. I've never seen anyone move like that. Several young Muay Thai fighters hurried through the crowd, hoping to catch him before he disappeared. By the time Bruce reached the arena entrance, nearly 20 fighters had gathered behind him. None of them spoke immediately. They simply bowed. Bruce returned the gesture. One of the youngest fighters finally found the courage to speak. Master, what style do you practice? Bruce smiled. I practice understanding. The young man looked confused. I don't understand. Bruce nodded. Exactly. The moment you believe your style has all the answers, you stop learning. The fighters exchanged glances. Those words stayed with them. Another fighter stepped forward. You could have knocked out our champion. Bruce shook his head. That wasn't why I entered the ring. Then why did you? Because he invited a challenge. And every sincere challenge deserves respect. The fighters fell silent again. None of them had expected such an answer. Back inside the arena, the undefeated champion remained standing in the center of the ring. The applause had faded. Most of the audience had already begun leaving. His oldest trainer slowly climbed through the ropes. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Finally, the trainer smiled. I warned you. The champion lowered his head. You did. There is always someone stronger. The champion nodded. And sometimes, the strongest man doesn't look strong at all. The old trainer placed a hand on his shoulder. You lost nothing tonight. The champion looked surprised. I couldn't touch him. No. But you gained something far more valuable. The champion remained silent. Wisdom. The word lingered in the quiet arena. For the first time in years, the champion understood what his teacher had been trying to tell him. An undefeated record didn't mean the journey was over. It meant the journey had only become more dangerous. Outside, Bruce continued walking through Bangkok's warm night. The streets were still alive with music, food vendors, and passing traffic. To everyone else, it was just another evening. To the fighters following behind him, everything had changed. One of them gathered enough courage to ask another question. Will we ever see you fight again? Bruce looked ahead without stopping. I hope not. The fighter frowned. But you're one of the greatest martial artists I've ever seen. Bruce smiled softly. The greatest victory is the one you never have to fight for. The young fighters stood speechless. Bruce thanked them for their kindness, then quietly disappeared into the busy streets of Bangkok. No bodyguards, no celebration, no interviews. Only a quiet man walking into the night. Behind him, the story had already begun spreading. Some people claimed he defeated the champion with one punch. Others insisted the fight lasted only seconds. A few swore Bruce had never been touched. Each retelling became more dramatic than the last. But those who had truly witnessed the demonstration remembered something different. Not the speed, not the technique, not even the final exchange. They remembered the respect, because on that unforgettable night, the undefeated Muay Thai champion discovered that true greatness isn't measured by how many opponents you defeat, but but by how much you're willing to learn when you finally meet someone better. Only one chapter remained, and it would reveal why Bruce Lee himself believed that the greatest lesson of the night had nothing to do with winning at all. Bangkok never truly slept. Long after the arena lights had gone dark, the city continued breathing. Street vendors served steaming bowls of noodles to late-night customers. Motorcycles echoed through narrow streets. Neon signs reflected off rain-soaked pavement. Inside a quiet hotel overlooking the city, Bruce Lee sat beside an open window. The humid night air drifted into the room. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't replaying the fight. He simply watched the lights of Bangkok in silence. A gentle knock broke the quiet. "Come in." The door opened. Danny Nosanto stepped inside. He had watched everything from the audience. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he smiled. "I've seen you fight many times, but I've never seen a crowd go from laughing to complete silence that quickly." Bruce gave a small smile. "They weren't watching me." Dan raised an eyebrow. "No." They were watching their own expectations disappear. Dan pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "You could have ended it much earlier." Bruce nodded. "I know. Why didn't you?" Bruce looked out the window again. "If I had knocked him out, the crowd would only remember the knockout." Dan thought about that. "And instead, I wanted them to remember the lesson." Silence filled the room once more. Finally, Dan asked, "What lesson?" Bruce turned toward him. "People spend years trying to defeat others. They spend very little time trying to defeat their own ego." Dan smiled. "That's why you never threw the final punch." Bruce nodded. A true martial artist doesn't prove his strength every chance he gets. He controls it. The following morning, word of the demonstration had already spread across Bangkok. Small newspapers carried headlines about the mysterious Chinese martial artist. Young fighters gathered outside local gyms, repeating stories they had heard from the night before. Every version sounded different. Some claimed Bruce had knocked the champion down with one finger. Others insisted he had moved too fast to be seen. The stories grew larger with every retelling. Bruce never corrected them. He never looked for attention. Before leaving the city, he accepted one final invitation. A small Muay Thai gym on the edge of Bangkok had asked if he would share a few ideas with their students. Bruce agreed. No cameras, no reporters, no ticket sales. Just 20 young fighters eager to learn. For nearly 4 hours, Bruce never spoke about winning. He never claimed one martial art was better than another. Instead, he asked questions. What happens when your favorite technique doesn't work? The students remained quiet. Bruce smiled. If your answer is panic, you haven't trained enough. He demonstrated simple footwork, small angles, balance, timing, distance. Nothing looked flashy, yet every movement made perfect sense. One student finally asked, "Master Bruce, what is the strongest style?" Bruce looked around the room, then slowly picked up a cup of water from a nearby table. He held it in front of everyone. "What shape is water?" The students looked confused. "It has no shape." Bruce nodded. "Exactly. It becomes whatever the moment requires." He poured the water into a bowl. Now it's the bowl. Then into a bottle. Now it's the bottle. He placed the bottle back on the table. A fighter should be the same. Never become trapped inside one way of thinking. The room fell silent. No one forgot those words. Years later, many of those young fighters became respected coaches across Thailand. Whenever new students asked them about the greatest lesson they had ever learned, they never spoke first about punches or kicks. They spoke about humility. They spoke about adapting. And they spoke about one quiet visitor who walked into Bangkok without asking for recognition, yet left behind a lesson that outlived every championship. As for the undefeated Muay Thai champion, he continued defending his title. He remained one of Thailand's most respected fighters, but something about him had changed forever. Before every fight, he remembered the quiet man who had stood across from him without fear, the man who could have claimed victory with one strike, yet chose respect instead. Whenever young fighters asked him the secret to remaining a champion, he always gave the same answer. Never believe you've learned everything, Because the day you stop learning is the day you've already started losing. Bruce Lee left Bangkok the same way he had arrived, quietly, without headlines, without celebration, without asking anyone to remember his name. But they remembered anyway. Not because he defeated an undefeated champion, not because he proved he was the better fighter. They remembered him because he reminded everyone inside that arena of something far greater. Real martial arts was never about humiliating an opponent. It was never about protecting an unbeaten record. It was never about proving who was stronger. It was about discipline, respect, growth, and the courage to keep learning no matter how much the world praised you. Because in the end, the unbeaten Muay Thai champion chose the wrong opponent, but he found the right teacher. And sometimes, that is the greatest victory of all.